Hello, it's story time. So, take a minute, take two, get really, really comfortable, get a drink, build a blanket fort, do what you gotta do, and while you're doing what you gotta do, I'm gonna tell you that this podcast and all of these stories are supported by patrons. So if these stories feed you, if you eat stories for breakfast and you like them, please become a patron. You'll get more stories. And you can do that on patreon.com/can I tell you a story, and you will receive bonus stories which you can eat for lunch and other things which you can read about on the site. And now, I hope you're very comfortable because it's story time. If I could go myself, I would. Aleida's Uncle Herman, the apothecarist, doesn't look at her as he speaks. He's watching the surface of a copper pan that looks like it's filled with liquid moonlight, shimmering silver. The light makes his nose look craggier than usual. His eyebrows look unhinged, casting spidery shadows onto his forehead. But this, he gestures carefully at the glowing liquid, requires very precise and careful supervision. Aleida grips the handle of the foraging basket and looks out the window into the darkness. Outside the chaotic warmth of the workshop, one half of the sky is stars, and the other half is solid black. The jungle wall lets through no light. It doesn't stop sound, though. The night is alive with it, buzzing, screaming, screeching, clicking. It gets in her head and rackets around in there until her skull vibrates with it, and she feels like she's losing all sense of herself, such as it is. She's been living with Herman for 7 long and confusing months, since her mother got sick. Who is she when she's out of context? Who is she without the familiar streets and buildings that anchor her to the world, without the routine that holds her in place? Who is she here in this village, where everyone knows each other, themselves, their places? Aleida feels unreal, irregular, bereft. And, says Herman, it'll be educational. Aleida's mouth is too dry for speech, and anyway, there's nothing to say. Someone has to go for more of the glowing mushroom caps that, dried and powdered, fill the little tin that's sitting empty on Herman's workbench. Tonight, that someone is her. The only way to be sure of gathering the right ones is to collect them at night, when a swirl of bluish dots is visible on their flat tops. She wants to tie a string to herself, like Theseus in the maze going after the Minotaur, but she knows the jungle has no respect for Tether's home. It would snap, the jungle would eat it, and the jungle would laugh, and then it would eat her too. And that's just the plants, seething and reaching. That morning, village gossip by the well said the jungle wolves were back, running their hidden paths, their dark, green-sheened fur blending in to the rest of the chaotic entanglement of vines and limbs and lichens and rot. Sleek pelts and silent mouths, slinking through the undergrowth, and never, ever going hungry. They didn't seem afraid, the people of the jungle. They seemed reverent, in awe. Aleida hung back and listened to their stories and didn't understand. "Don't make me go out there," she says, but her voice is only in her head. Aleida is afraid of the night, but she's also afraid of the puzzled look on Herman's face that says he doesn't comprehend that there could be a problem. The same kind of vague misunderstanding that has followed her all her life, cancelling out her feelings with empty reassurances until she's just a shell containing subtle wrongness, smoothed over and made polite. Her teachers, her neighbours, her mother. Nobody listens. Nobody sees her. Nobody believes her. Until Aleida doesn't believe herself. There's nothing to be afraid of. Then why am I afraid? Aleida, don't be silly. But this is serious. You're fine, now hurry up. Am I fine? But this doesn't feel like fine should feel. Is this fine? The jungle might eat her alive, but Herman's baffled expression would be here in the room with her, and the empty tin on the workbench would be a symbol of another failure. She smiles a smile that isn't real as Herman glances up at her and back down at his workbench. She opens the door and steps out. The jungle beckons. Aleida takes a faltering step towards it, away from the light that falls from the workroom windows and pools on the ground, away from the safety it promises. She takes another step. The wall of sound and darkness looms ahead of her. Aleida grips the handle of her basket and swallows, eyes already scanning for the telltale glow of mushroom caps, knowing they're never found on the very edge. She's going to have to go in. She looks back at the workshop, in its place at the end of the village, glowing like the moon. Past the workshop are the warmer lights of the houses nestled together, holding their sleeping, dreaming families until morning. Aleida turns back to the jungle wall, night vision lost. She takes another step forward, and the clearing is gone behind her, all light swallowed by the jungle. The darkness is so complete all she can see is eyes staring out at her. Every time she blinks, they disappear and reappear elsewhere. Her mind is playing tricks on her and everything is watching. 100 eyes, 1,000 eyes, waiting for her to put a foot wrong. The jungle is a greedy place, aggressively alive, no part of it inert. The whole seething, tangled mass of it is pulsing with life, even in the dark. Aleida knows that if she stands still for long enough, she will be subsumed. It wouldn't be personal. She wouldn't have been chosen, wouldn't have been special or needed. It would eat her just because she was there. The jungle doesn't care. The knowledge of the sheer impersonal cruelty of it is almost worse than being eaten. It'd be different if it was personal. It'd mean that she mattered, that somebody saw her, but nobody does. Her breath is high and short. She tries to keep it quiet, feeling like the one wrong note in the cacophony of nighttime noises. Aleida's feet take her further into the humid, rotting dark. Her eyes keep playing tricks on her. The mushrooms aren't the only bioluminescent plant in the jungle. She squints from the negligible safety of the path, at hints of something glowing off in the dense mess of it, trying to distinguish the mushrooms from the decoys. Is that? No. Is that? No. Is that? No. And then there are the fireflies, flicking on and off and wafting through the darkness, here again, gone again, until she's dizzy and disoriented, rooted to the spot in terror of losing the path and being overgrown, eaten down to bones by animals and insects and fungus, and covered over with creepers and moss until she is completely erased. And if she's eaten by the jungle, in a day or a week, Herman would look around, absently, wondering if he'd put her down somewhere and forgotten where. Eventually he'd pick up a new assistant from the village, the same way he'd pick up a new set of tongs, or a slotted spoon, or any of the myriad other things he's always mislaying. The jungle closes in, the monsters in her mind calling to the monsters in the darkness. Something, is it fur? Brushes her hands, and Aleida's mind cries, "Wolves!" and she stifles a scream, panic trumping any kind of thought, and she runs, scrambles, trips. Moss cakes her hands and knees as she stumbles and struggles to find upright. Her feet sink into the decomposing layers that pass for the ground. Aleida falls headlong and closes her eyes, and it makes no difference to the darkness. She waits to be eaten, and nothing happens. She breathes fast, and then faster still. And then she runs out of fear. On the other side of terror is strange, floating calmness. Aleida opens her eyes. All around her are the glowing caps of mushrooms, casting a soft blue light, the exact colour of wonder. The wonder is infectious, and Aleida finds herself filled with it. The jungle no longer sounds like chaos. There's a strange kind of rhythm to the individual sounds that she's never heard before, never been able to hear. She takes a breath. The air is warm, humid and close, but intimate rather than cloying. She tests the new information sinking into her mind like a gentle mist. She wasn't eaten. She was welcome. "Thank you," she says out loud, not knowing what to do with the enormity of feeling known by the jungle. Every plant, every insect, every animal sleeping or lurking, hunting or playing. As she watches, the mushrooms seem to pulse faintly, a little brighter, a little dimmer. She remembers why she's there and scrambles to her knees, unwilling to stop looking, unwilling to leave the place she so recently feared to come. But Herman is waiting, and he'll notice eventually, and the empty tin is waiting, and there is always tomorrow. "May I?" she says to the jungle, reaching out her hand. The mushroom caps come away easily in her fingers. Her foraging basket lost, she gathers them into her skirt. She walks slowly back towards the village. The 1,000 imagined eyes are looking elsewhere now, and she marvels at the difference. The jungle is still overflowing with aliveness, but now her own life is a thread in its tapestry. Instead of being eaten, she's been woven in, included, made necessary. She steps over the threshold between jungle and village and walks towards Herman's moon-glow workshop, skirt full of the jungle's kindness, lighter, made new. Thanks for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this story. And if you did, and you'd like more stories and to support the podcast, perhaps you'd like to become a patron. Patrons receive bonus stories. There's a whole lot of them waiting there for you already. And other things, including, but not limited to, my endless thanks. And you can find out more about that on patreon.com/Can I Tell You a Story. Until next time, I hope that you run out of terror and find wonder on the other side.